Oh, if you've got Breece Hall on your fantasy team, you are a happy camper on this Friday. And if you played against Ramondre Stevenson, you're probably an even bigger, happier camper. I don't know what's better than being a happy camper, I guess. But you're in the right place to talk about fantasy football. This is Fantasy Football Today, presented by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. I'm Dave Richard, joined by Katie Mox. She's Sportsline's gambling guru. And Adam Aizer is wearing a mustache. If you want to know more about that, check out our podcast. He will tell you all about it. It's an interesting look.
I like it. I just want to be on record. I like it. I think it's a different look. I think you just got a little bit of extra swagger going on.
I'll tell you what, it looks different than how it looked 12 hours ago. 12 hours ago.
Was it sparse?
Yeah, it wasn't as grown in. It's really crazy how much it's grown in the last 12 hours. Listen, I could honestly do the entire show about this mustache.
Yeah.
But I want to get to starts and sits.
Yeah.
I want to get to your player props.
Yeah.
You want to talk about the mustache.
I just have one question about the mustache. How long is it lasting?
Adam?
About 3 p.m.
Oh, just today. All right. Well, thank God I got to see it. All right.
Enjoy while you can, everybody. Like I said, we will talk about starts and sits, and we're going to get to your player props. You've been on fire. Yeah. But first, let's talk about this Thursday game. The Jets clobbered the Patriots. It was 24-3, and we got vintage Aaron Rodgers in the game. 281 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, even did a little bit on the ground. He's already rostered in 68% of leagues. I'm wondering, would you view him as a must-start looking at his next 4 games? Denver, Minnesota, that game's in England, Buffalo, Pittsburgh. Katie, what do you see from Aaron Rodgers so far?
I see that he played a banged-up Patriots team. And I'm not saying that Aaron Rodgers isn't great, right? He's one of my favorite quarterbacks, certainly one of the best of all time. And like you said, 281 passing yards. He hadn't even broke 200 in the first 2 games. So, yes, he did better. But this Patriots offense couldn't get anything going. Their O-line was disseminated, so the defense was on the field the whole time. And, yeah, the Jets were 6.5-point favorites in this game. Maybe we weren't expected to be that big of a blowout. I'm just saying, let's pump the brakes a little bit on how good this Jets team is going to be. I want to see them against a Brian Flores defense when he's getting blitzed up the wazoo, and how he does there. But, yeah, great game for Aaron Rodgers, great game for Jets fans. I'm just saying pump the brakes.
You're going to see that in 2 weeks against the Vikings. And, yeah, only started in 15% of leagues. I think he's going to start to get picked up more, but more as a bye-week quarterback. I don't like any of those next 4 matchups. And that brings me to my next point, Adam. Garrett Wilson. 9 targets, love that.
Yeah.
5 catches, 33 yards. The touchdown we love too.
Finally!
Yeah, we will take that.
Let's go!
But the yardage wasn't so good, Katie. And really, the first 3 weeks of the season, no games with huge numbers for Garrett Wilson. And honestly, when I was watching the game, I was kind of disenchanted with the fact that the timing was off between Wilson and Aaron Rodgers. Like, Rodgers had it with Lazard.
Yeah.
He had it with Conklin.
Yeah.
Didn't have it with Garrett Wilson. So I'll ask you this, Adam. Are you trying to buy low on Garrett Wilson right now in your fantasy leagues?
Yes, I absolutely am. If you're worried about the timing, then that's something that I think will get better, has to get better. And Garrett Wilson's just really good. And the fact that Aaron Rodgers looks as good as he does, and it looks better than this,
Come on.
That makes very encouraged for Garrett Wilson. Look, Garrett Wilson had a tough matchup. Christian Gonzalez followed him basically everywhere, shadowed him. Christian Gonzalez has done a really good job so far this season. You saw DK Metcalf had a big game last week. Almost all of his production came when Gonzalez was not covering him. So this was a tough matchup for him. Next week's even tougher with Surtain. But I would buy low now because next week, if he does struggle against Surtain, then people might be like, okay, well, the tough matchups are over. I'm going to start. I would buy low now on Garrett Wilson. I think he's still going to have a huge year. I am very encouraged by him. And also, I think the timing between Aaron Rodgers and Robert Saleh will also get better. They will bro hug next week. They will get it down.
Hopefully so.
There was an icy exchange there.
It was a little bit.
What did he say? Don't call that play?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I can't get into that. And listen, as long as they win, they don't care. They just want to go ahead and just keep moving forward with the dubs. I would put in offers now for Wilson. They would be kind of low ball-ish. And I hate to be the guy to recommend a low ball offer in fantasy. You want to make it a respectable offer. But the fact is that if you get the offer in now, the manager that has Garrett Wilson is going to say no now. And then after next week, when he gets shut down by Patrick Surtain, that manager's going to say, okay, sure, I'll give you Garrett Wilson now. That's the plan of attack. It's a little bit of a 2-week stretch if you're trying to acquire Garrett Wilson, but I would wait 1 more week to do it. Breece Hall, awesome. third game this year. He's only played 3, so he's 3 of 3 of getting at least 18 PPR points. But we did see Braylon Allen get 14 touches against New England. People are nervous about this. I don't think there's anything to be nervous about here. When the going gets tough for the Jets, you're going to see a lot more of Breece Hall anyway. Plus, Breece Hall had every single snap inside the 5, every single snap inside the 10, and almost every single third down snap. So Breece Hall, stud, don't even think twice about it. Braylon Allen, someone to keep on your bench just in case something bad happens. Is there any other takeaway that you've got from the game, maybe involving the star players that we're talking about here?
Yeah, well, I think in general, week 2 was a bloodbath for bettors, right? I mean, if you had favorites of 6.5 or 6 points or more, they all lost, and that kind of carried over into this game. Public was really, really heavy on the main guys, right? Garrett Wilson over on his receiving yards. He went under, only had 33 yards. Breece Hall, everyone was hammering the over. He went under. Ramondre Stevenson, everybody thought this was going to be a huge game for him, and he went under as well. 90% of bets on the over for those 3 guys, all hitting under. So unfortunately, the bloodbath for the public has continued into this week, but hopefully we pick it up here.
Those buildings did not build themselves in Las Vegas, but it's still fun to chase it. And Ramondre Stevenson, I mean, just bringing up the name. I don't have him on any of my teams. I don't know if you have him on any of your teams, but I know you guys have him on your teams. And after the first 2 weeks of the season, he was awesome. Yeah. Basically became a must-start guy. This wasn't just his worst game of the year, guys. It was his worst game pretty much ever. 6 carries, 23 yards, no targets, a fumble. Adam, can fantasy managers feel good starting him, knowing the next few games are at San Francisco, home against Miami, home against Houston, Jacksonville and London, and then after that, it's the Jets again, the Titans, the Bears. This is not a great schedule for Ramondre.
No, and he's not a great running back. He's not making big plays. He pretty much never breaks off big game-changing runs. His best run, he lost 15 yards of it because of the face mask, right? And that was like a 20-yard run. That's about what you can expect. He doesn't make big explosive plays. He's a good, solid player. He needs a lot of volume, and he needs to catch the ball. But the good thing about Ramondre Stevenson that makes him usually more bust-proof than this is that he plays on third down. Not exclusively on third down, but he's not a guy that just comes off the field. He shares with Antonio Gibson. So that is good, but Brissett's got to have to start throwing to the running backs a little bit more. But let me just tell you this. If you are on a bad offense and you are a 6-point dog on the road, you are not a must-start running back. And I would look at a guy like Brian Robinson, who might be on a bad offense, who is a 7-point, I don't know the exact line, 7-point-ish dog on the road at Cincinnati. We love Burrow. We think Chase and Higgins are going to have big games. That kind of running back is not a must-start running back. There is a huge downside on a weekly basis in that scenario when you're on a team that isn't that good and might get blown out. So that's just something to keep in mind going forward with Ramondre Stevenson or any running back that you're counting, like a Zamir White. You know, like if he's in a situation where he's a touchdown underdog, he's never going to be a must start. And even though Ramondre doesn't come off the field on third down, they still don't throw to him enough. So I would push back. He'll pretty much never be a must-start running back. You know, if you were playing like Carolina or something, maybe, but he's just not that. He's a flat. He's a number 2 running back. He's a number 2 running back.
Play everyone against Carolina, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, that defense is really in bad shape, and he does get the Dolphins in 2 weeks. Maybe that's when the sell-high window reopens for Ramondre Stevenson. A couple of other notes from this game. Allen Lazard had 13 PPR points. It's the second time in 3 games that he's hit at least that mark. We've got bye weeks coming soon, and in week 5, we've got the Eagles on bye, the Lions are on bye, the Titans are on bye. You can go and grab Allen Lazard off the waiver wire and use him as a bye week replacement at wide receiver then. And we did see Drake May come in at the end of the game. We don't need to get into a breakdown of how he did it all, but maybe he'll be good for the receivers there, Demario Douglas and Jalen Polk, because he's a little bit more aggressive. He's also a little bit more mobile, so some plays he'll be able to avoid the pass rush, and he'll be able to make some throws downfield. But that's basically about it. Jets look great. Aaron Rodgers looked great. We'll see if they can keep it going moving forward. Now, we've got more news to review. Let's start with the Bengals, who are big favorites against the Commanders on Monday night. T. Higgins is back at practice. This is a good thing for them. They really need that second option. They got by with Mike Gesicki in week 2. Andre Yoshivas had a couple of touchdowns in that game. They really could have used him in week 1, but now those twin towers at wide receiver are back at him. Where would you have Higgins ranked for week number 3, Adam?
Yeah, around 20th overall. If he had been healthy playing, he'd probably be closer to 15 or 12 overall. But this is a guy that played 1 snap in one game in 2022 and then left with an injury when he came in banged up. He left 3 games that season with very early with an injury. So he does have a little bit of a history of that. But I've got T. Higgins in a lot of leagues. I'd say he was one of my most drafted players. I'm so excited to get him back in the lineup. Start T. Higgins.
You're excited. You should go talk to Joe Burrow about it. He's excited about it. A.J. Brown's another receiver who is not at practice. It looks like he could miss another game. I can't wait for this Eagles-Saints throwdown in the Dome in New Orleans.
Yeah.
What are you seeing from that game? What's happening with the line there?
It's interesting. A lot of recency bias here, which I would just tell everyone to go into it with a little bit of caution, right? Because the Eagles opened up as 3-point favorites. For what we've seen from this Saints team marching into Dallas and dropping 40 on that pass rush, now we've seen it flip, cross through 0, which doesn't always happen, and now the Eagles are 3-point dogs. If the Eagles hadn't completely imploded at the end of the Monday Night Football game, I don't think this line would be as aggressive. So I would maybe wait and see a little bit closer to game time before you make a play on this one. I do think that the Eagles can cover the 3 at this point.
It's going to be an interesting game. I think the Saints offense has been on fire this year because of the offensive line. They've given Derek Carr a chance to throw downfield. He's really done a great job with it. I view Chris Olave as a number 2 wide receiver. Rashid Shaheed, we will talk about a little bit later on in the show when we do some start and sit calls. Also, some running backs. Joe Mixon, not at practice. Cam Akers looks like he's going to be the starter for the Houston Texans. Kenneth Walker, not at practice for the Seahawks. Zach Charbonnet looks like he'll be the guy for the Seahawks this week. Jamie Eisenberg, who's not with us on today's show, has him as his start of the week, and I agree, he is a low-end RB1. Raheem Mostert, not expected to play. That means another huge week, potentially, for Devon Achane going up against the Seahawks in the Pacific Northwest. There is a quarterback issue there, obviously. Skylar Thompson now under center for the Dolphins. I think that'll matter when we get to Jaylen Waddle. We'll talk about him later on in the show. But Devon Achane, unstoppable, top 5 type of fantasy running back. I don't care who the quarterback is. It's just those little dink passes, and he can make plays. I love it. And then Jordan Love, speaking of Love, back at practice. He's taking on the Titans. Adam, is there something that you heard from any of the guys that we talked about, including Jordan Love, that makes you want to change or alter or whatever your fantasy lineups or your fantasy projections for the upcoming week?
In regards to the Packers?
You could say it with the Packers, the Dolphins, the Seahawks, the Texans. Dealer's choice, my man.
Oh my gosh, the Dolphins. I am absolutely terrified. We got a question on our mailbag. It's like Tyreek Hill, Rashee Rice, Brandon Ayuk, and Marvin Harrison Jr. had to sit one of them. And I was very tempted to sit Tyreek Hill. I said, I'm going to start Tyreek Hill because I do think he's going to get probably double-digit targets. Hopefully he can just do something big with it. I'll get around 10 targets, let's say. So nervous about Hill, but starting him. Waddle, I'd start Cam Akers over Waddle. I'd start Akers over Waddle. And then if Jordan Love plays, I would probably not start Watson. Maybe I'd start Reed. I'd start him over Akers. And then Love would be in the Geno Smith area, around 15th overall, behind Derek Carr, behind Baker Mayfield, but ahead of guys like Justin Fields and Gardner Minshew. To
your Tyreek Hill point, with Skylar Thompson, most of this is in 2022, 35 targets, 20 catches, 171 yards, no touchdowns, and on throws of 15 or more air yards. These are deep throws from Skylar Thompson to Tyreek Hill. 8 targets, 0 catches. That's a problem. You got to worry about that if you've got Tyreek Hill. He is outside of my top 12. Before we hit the break, we want to help you. You guys send us in some tweets. We want to answer them. Here's one from Tony. In Dynasty PPR, I was offered A.J. Brown and DJ Moore for Nico Collins and Rashid Shaheed, 2 guys with values that have dropped for 2 risers. I'm going to hang on to Brown and Moore. I think Nico Collins is great. He's going to be a fixture in Houston for a long time, but give me A.J. Brown and give me DJ Moore. I think that they can stand the test of time, at least for 3 years. You might get more out of Nico Collins. He might be great for 5 years, but you can win now with Brown and DJ Moore. Rashid Shaheed, fun right now. We'll see how fun he is by the time we get to the end of the season.
Hopefully as fun as the mustache.
Hopefully more fun than the mustache, because the mustache is going to go away apparently. Hey, we're going to be back with starts and sits, quarterbacks and running backs. Do not go anywhere. Join us here on FFT. Thanks for coming back to FFT here on CBS Sports Network. We are live every Friday to help you get ready for the week ahead in fantasy football. And we are going to do some start and sit. We do it a little bit differently on this show. I'm going to give 3 players at a position. We're going to rank the 3 players, and then we're going to talk about which one we like the best, like the least. Are they all starts? Are none of them starts? The conversation goes from there. So we're going to start with the quarterbacks, ranking these 3. Derek Carr, who's second right now in fantasy points per game. Baker Mayfield is first right now in fantasy points per game.
Insane.
And Patrick Mahomes is 14th in fantasy points per game. What planet am I on? But we're going to rank these 3. Who do you want to start the most from this group, Adam Aizer? Carr, Mahomes, or Mayfield?
You know, it would have been Carr if Pacheco had not gotten hurt. But because Pacheco is hurt, I'm going to go with Patrick Mahomes 1, Derek Carr 2, and Baker Mayfield 3. I think buy low on Travis Kelce while you still can. We're going to see more passing for Patrick Mahomes, hopefully a better version of Patrick Mahomes. You say, what planet are we on? With Mahomes, you're on planet 2023. This is basically what he did last year, but I think he'll turn it around because they won't have much of a run game.
I agree on the Kelce sentiment. He is a buy low, but if we're on planet 2023, whatever planet that is with Mahomes, I don't want to be on it. He really was not good for fantasy managers that year. I'm going to take Carr first. I think that he is, for real. You like the Carr pick? Hold on a second.
Did you see the Michael Jackson move he did? I'm all in on Carr.
Wow, I did not even see that. I'm too busy enjoying football, I guess. But
he
Carr,
did it in the end zone.
He did? How did I miss that?
I don't know.
What the heck's going on? What planet am I on? Carr's my favorite of the group. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game with Philadelphia, and I think he's going to continue to get that pass protection. I mentioned that. I didn't mention the new offense, and it's really been great for him. He's attacking downfield with confidence. He's got great scheme involved. Certainly, they're using more motion, more play action. These things matter for quarterbacks feeling comfortable, being able to make easy reads, and it's happening. First time in like 2 decades, the Saints have been doing these things. So I like Carr the best. Mahomes is next. And Baker Mayfield, a little bit worried about him not doing much. We were saved last week by a rushing touchdown. Taking on the Broncos, I don't think the Broncos are going to put up many points. So Baker's actually last on this list for me. But you're cheering Derek Carr. Is it just because of the touchdown celebration?
Yeah,
or is it because of something else?
I'm going to tell you, I want to see more Michael Jackson from him. So I am going to take Carr over 1.5 passing touchdowns. The fact that we're getting this at minus 110, he's hit this in the last 2 games. But even dating back to last season, I believe he's had this in 7 consecutive games. You look at this Eagles team, they have been allowing quarterbacks to throw on them. We saw Kirk Cousins march down 70 yards on Monday night. They've allowed 2 passing touchdowns in each of their first 2 games and the 5th most passing yards. I don't know how much longer we could take this bet on Derek Carr, but I think it's a good matchup for him over 1.5.
And when I see these over touchdown props, usually there's a lot of juice with them. Seeing it at minus 110.
I know.
Yeah, that's like a decent value. It's a bargain.
Yep.
That's cool. All right, so while we do this, and we're going to rank these 3 players, we want you to do the same. Our account at FF Today on Twitter posted the exact same polls. Let's see what you guys voted for. You voted for Patrick Mahomes. They agree with you, Adam, far and away ahead of Derek Carr and Baker Mayfield as the top option this week. So the public is with you. Mahomes 1, Carr 2, Mayfield 3. I just have it in a different order. Let's move to running backs. Jerome Ford, Aaron Jones, and Zach Moss. And Katie, I have a feeling that you're going to like Zach Moss more than the other 2.
Wow, you are so in tune with me today. I appreciate that. I do. So there isn't odds yet on this, right? Because it's one of the Monday night games. I believe we have a double header, right? Monday night this week. Super exciting. But I do like him for an anytime touchdown, and we'll see what those odds are. If it ends up being really juicy, then maybe you throw it in a parlay. But this Commanders defense has been pretty soft against the run, right? Gave up 95 yards to Singletary. We did see that the Bucs weren't able to get into the end zone with the run game, but that's kind of been the story for them this season so far. So I do like Moss to find pay dirt in this. See what the odds are. Maybe you throw in a parlay or maybe you take it as
I'm going to rank them Zach Moss 1, Aaron Jones 2, Jerome Ford 3. And I'm going to say that they're all starts. I think they're all low-end number 2 type of fantasy running backs. But that's how I think that matchup's great. And I think he does score. I think Zach Moss has a shot at even like 80 total yards in the game. Adam, do you see it the same way?
I do not. I'm actually going to go Jerome Ford number 1 against the Giants' run defense, which might be the worst in football. And this wouldn't even be a question if the Giants and the Browns were meeting in week 2 after Jerome Ford basically got all the touches in week 1, right? I don't know what that Deontay Foreman thing was about in week 2, but how could the Browns look at the production in week 2 and say, oh, Deontay Foreman needs to be our lead running back? It doesn't make any sense. So I'm going to take an upside play here. I do think it's also a downside play, but an upside play that Jerome Ford regains that starting job, is the feature back, and crushes a pathetic run defense. That team cannot tackle at all. Commanders' first 100-yard rushing game in like 25 games or something, and Brian Robinson destroyed them. I think Jerome Ford could do the same. And Aaron Jones is second for me. It's a really tough matchup for Aaron Jones, but he's more involved in the passing game. Zach Moss, I might owe you an apology, Dave, because I sort of acted incredulously on Sunday night when you were saying Chase Brown is eventually going to be the guy. And I was like, look, there's no evidence of that. They are playing Zach Moss ahead of him. But the more I thought of it, you're right. Zach Moss isn't doing that well. So I hope that my instinct on Sunday was right, because I have a lot of Zach Moss, and his role is great. He needs to produce. He needs to produce this week. If he doesn't, it's red alert. And I'm a little bit worried that Chase Brown mixes in more this week and will be disappointed in the usage. But if you told me that the usage was going to be the same, then I'd be pretty confident in Zach Moss. But I don't know, man. He's been so disappointing, I think, through 2 games that they might start getting Chase Brown more involved.
Yeah, I don't think they're there yet, but I think they would get there if he even struggles going into the second half in this matchup. So that's why I'm going to go with Zach Moss now. I'm glad you brought up Chase Brown. If you've got Chase Brown in your fantasy team, hang on to him. I think he will have his moment, and it might come sooner than later, especially if Zach Moss does not come through, but we don't need that type of mojo on this show. We want Zach Moss to find the end zone. Let's see what the fans said. The audience, the FFT crew, they are with Adam.
Oh!
Hold on. Wait a minute. Adam, are you just voting 1,252 times?
Yeah, how many burner accounts do you have?
Yeah. This is a little. I'm giving you the side eye on this. This is the second poll in a row that you're winning.
Yeah, at Adam's mustache.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, there we go.
It is close between Ford and Moss. I don't know if you caught that, but Moss is second by just percentage points behind Ford. Aaron Jones at the back of the pack. None of us had Aaron Jones that far back. All right, next group of running backs. And by the way, I will say this. Moss, Jones, Ford. I'll start all 3 of these guys over these 3. Najee Harris going up against the Chargers. Carson Steele, his first start, question mark. Will he start? It's against Atlanta, and DeAndre Swift of the Bears going up against the Indianapolis Colts. Adam Aizer, rank these 3 running backs.
Well, Dave, I do think with this thing on my face, I should go with the Bear, but I'm not going to go with DeAndre Swift. I think DeAndre Swift stinks. It's a great matchup, though, for DeAndre Swift. So I got to say, whoever you put this list together, all these lists, these trios have been very tough. And it took me a while to rank them, and I was going back and forth. But I settled on Carson Steele 1, Najee Harris 2, DeAndre Swift 3. I don't know, man. I mean, I think Carson Steele is going to get fewer carries than Najee Harris, but I think he's more likely to score a touchdown. And Swift has just been so bad. And not just Swift, Caleb Williams has been really bad.
Yes.
So they're just not going to move the ball that well, I think. I hope they do. It's the easiest matchup they've had by far, but I have no faith in Caleb Williams and the way he's playing right now, and that will hurt DeAndre Swift's opportunities.
So he mentioned Carson Steele, hoping that he scores a touchdown. Do you have what type of prop are you looking at for Steele? Is it an anytime touchdown prop for him, or is it something else?
No, but that's curious. I'll look at the odds for those. Might be worth a little bit of a sprinkle. But I am going to fade him with his rushing yards. The line is at 43.5, and it's kind of for everything that we've already talked about on the show. One, I don't think he's going to step in necessarily to that starter or lead back role. I think it's going to be more of a committee. Reed has said as much. I do think that Patrick Mahomes is going to have to be airing this one out a lot more. And I think this game is going to be close, too. I mean, the spread suggests that. It's just 3. And yes, Kirk Cousins has looked a little bit stiff, but hey, so did Aaron Rodgers. And then he looked really good in week 3. So I do think that they're going to be airing the ball out more. So I would fade him under the 43.5.
I don't know. We're in simpatico again, because when I rank these 3, I put Swift first, Adam. Najee was second. Carson Steele is last for me. And we saw something last week from DeAndre Swift that I think we've overlooked. 18 touches. That matters now, because we want running backs that are going to get the ball a lot. He also had 4 catches. It went nowhere for him against a tough Houston Texans defense. This week it's the Colts. They're without their best defensive lineman, that's DeForest Buckner. And we know that they also just aren't great against the run overall. I think this is an opportunity for the Bears to get right. I think that DeAndre Swift is going to be maybe a borderline number 2, number 3 type of fantasy running back, but not quite a top 24 guy, if you get what I'm saying. So that's why I'm going to take Moss, Jones, Jerome Ford, all ahead of him, but he's at the top of the list. Najee's going to get a lot of work. We've seen him get a lot of work in the first couple of games. It hasn't amounted to much fantasy-wise, and I'm taking a wait-and-see approach with these Kansas City running backs. I actually think that Kareem Hunt might actually be the guy. So does the audience agree with me? Does the audience agree with Adam? Let's see what they say. They don't agree with either of us. Najee Harris
the
is their
mustache
go-to.
lost its mojo.
If it's gone now, but Najee close over DeAndre Swift. But here I'm seeing this, only 28% for Carson Steele. So I think they're agreeing with you, Katie, that it's a good time to fade him right now. There's going to be multiple running backs in that mix. All right, before we go to break, I'll let you know that we are going to do wide receiver rank these threes and starts and sits, whatever we're calling them. That's coming up after the break. But before then, another question to answer from our FFT mailbag on social media. Hashtag AskFFT will get your question answered, so use it. And here's the question from Rovember is coming. After Ramondre Stevenson scored 0, I need to maximize my Superflex team. Caleb Williams, Daniel Jones, JSN in that flex. And he's got Jalen Hurts. At least he's got that going for him. Adam, do you have an answer to this question?
I'd go with Caleb Williams.
I agree. I think that that's probably the best way to go. I think it's worth also pointing out that Adam is a Giants fan, so all the shredding he did of that Giants defense, the fact that he won't pick Daniel Jones, maybe a little bit biased.
You're going to pick Daniel Jones? You're going to come on against the Browns?
I'm going to go with Caleb Williams. Not only is that front bad for Indianapolis, their secondary, huge question marks all over the place. Should be a good game for all Bears involved. When we come back, wide receiver starts and sits. Don't go anywhere. Fantasy Football Today is back. It's presented by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. We are going to get to wide receiver starts and sits. We're going to play rank these three. We're not going to give you Jamar Chase on this list or Marvin Harrison Jr. You know what to do with these guys. We're going to give you names that you don't know what to do with because we want to help you make good lineup decisions. So let's get to our first group of 3. It's Amari Cooper against the Giants, Rashid Shaheed versus Philadelphia, and Calvin Ridley versus Green Bay. Adam, rank these 3.
Yeah, when in doubt, go with the quarterback you trust the most, and that, to me, is Derek Carr. So Rashid Shaheed is number 1. Amari Cooper is number 2. Calvin Ridley is a distant 3rd. Cooper, I'm hopeful for him, but Deonte Banks is an okay cornerback. He's a solid cornerback. He's probably going to shadow Amari Cooper, so he could do a decent job. I'm starting Cooper. I'm definitely starting Shaheed. I'm not so thrilled to start Calvin Ridley. That was an easy call, but I'll go Shaheed number 1 here.
I'm going to look at Amari Cooper over on his longest reception at 20.5. I know it's kind of crazy. The man only has 26 total receiving yards through the first couple weeks, but I do think that he is the deep ball threat. And like you said, against this pass funnel of a Giants defense who gives up the 4th most yards per pass in the NFL, I think that it could be good for him. He's had 3 targets of over 20.5. This is maybe when Amari Cooper gets some of his mojo back.
You know what I want Amari Cooper to do, and this is how he gets his mojo back? Catch the football. Hold on to the ball. He would have gone over this in week 1 and he would have scored in week 1 if he had just held on to the ball. He caught a deep ball from Deshaun Watson, went right off his hands. He had a drop last week as well. He hasn't looked as explosive, but that being said, this is the Giants. The opportunity is going to be there for him to have some of these big plays. It doesn't all have to be, the yardage doesn't have to be all before he catches the ball. He can catch an 8-yard pass and take it 22 or 25 yards, and that still goes over. So I like where you're coming from with that, but he's not number 1 on my list. I agree with Adam. Shaheed 1, Amari Cooper 2, Calvin Ridley 3. Shaheed is a start for me. I think he's a top 24 wide receiver. High-scoring game against the Eagles. Did you see what Darnell Mooney was able to get away with in that game? Shaheed can do the exact same thing. I think Cooper and Ridley, more flex-type wide receivers. Let's take a look at what you guys thought of these wide receivers. Who's the one you want to start? It's Shaheed. Yeah, there's a
The
little
stash is back.
There's a little bit of recency bias in this for sure because Shaheed has been awesome, but Amari Cooper really just hasn't looked like himself, and Ridley is just tough to trust. He's more of a boom bust flex. All right, next group of 3 involves some receivers that I liked and disliked before the season. Terry McLaurin, I was such a huge fan of. He's playing at Cincinnati. Michael Pittman, didn't draft him in any of my leagues. He's taking on Chicago. Brian Thomas Jr., I came around on him. Now he's playing against Buffalo. That's a tough matchup in week number 3. I'm going to go back to McLaurin. I'm going to give him one more week. I know that Jaden Daniels isn't throwing downfield nearly as much as I thought he would, and that's something that needs to happen for Terry McLaurin to hit his ceiling. But I still think that he's got a chance to be a high-end flex, and I think he can still get some of those deep targets against Cincinnati. I think they're going to be trailing against the Bengals. We've talked about this matchup already a couple times on the show. I think McLaurin is still in line to get a lot of targets. Still think he's their best wide receiver. Still think he's worth starting as a number 3 guy. I do have Pittman next and then Brian Thomas. I think that Pittman's going to need to step up and get some targets. In full PPR, I will take him over Thomas. Thomas is ahead of Pittman for me in half PPR and in non-PPR. These are all number 3 wide receivers. They're all flexes. I'll start every wide receiver that we had in the first group of 3 over these receivers. Adam, I don't know if you feel the same way comparing this group of receivers to the first group of receivers, but I do want you to tell me how you rank McLaurin, Pittman, and Thomas.
I do feel that way. I go dude, I hated this group. I hated this tree.
You're going to go Pittman?
No, I go with Pittman. I just feel like a little bit of regression to the mean is going to come, and he's going to get more targets. I don't feel a lot of conviction in this call, though. Terry McLaurin would be number 2 for me, but Jaden Daniels' air yards per completion is under 3 yards. The guy cannot complete a pass downfield. And then I have Thomas 4th. In a normal week, I might rank him ahead of these guys, but I don't like the matchup against the Bills. The Bills are a team that does not get beat deep. They do not give up big plays in the passing game. You can see what they did to Tyreek Hill and Jaylen Waddle even when Tua was healthy last week. So I don't think it's a great matchup for him. So Pittman 1, McLaurin 2, Thomas 3. I'd like to sit all of them if I could.
Is there a prop you like on one of these receivers?
I'm going over on Scary Terry. For all the reasons that you just said, I do think that there's going to be some garbage time air yards. They are sizable dogs in this game.
Garbage time counts just the same in fantasy, so I love it. So that's 2 wide receiver start-sit pods, groups down. I got one more.
Ooh.
And here we go. It's Drake London against Kansas City. It's Jackson Smith and Jigba after what he did last week. Of course, I had to put him in one of these. He's going up against the Dolphins. And it's Jaylen Waddle at Seattle. Normally, Waddle wouldn't even be in the same stratosphere as Jackson Smith and Jigba, and maybe not even London either. But because of the quarterback change, I think there's an issue there. Katie, how big of an issue is this for Jaylen Waddle?
A huge issue for Jaylen Waddle and everyone. Let me just tell you about the Skylar Thompson effect. Tyreek Hill, his line, 66.5. It was 90-plus in week 2. Jaylen Waddle, 44.5. It was 60-plus in week 2. I mean, the guy is he's got 18 completions, 45 passes, 2 interceptions. Sorry, Jaylen Waddle, I'm fading you under 44.5 yards.
He had a 14% target per route run share, I should say, with Skylar Thompson in 2022. That scares me completely. So he's going to be last on my list. I'll take Drake London first. Jackson Smith and Jigba will be in the middle. Adam, how do you rank these 3?
I actually went JSN 1, then Drake London, then Jaylen Waddle. Waddle easily 3rd for me. I'm a little bit worried about Drake London. First of all, he got almost all of his production on 1 possession. He got super lucky against the Eagles. If Saquon Barkley catches that ball, he has another terrible game, and we're freaking out. I think the Chiefs' defense is going to get after Kirk Cousins. Their cornerbacks are really good. It's a tough matchup for him. I'm just not feeling it with Drake London this week. I hope he proves me wrong. I'm starting him in 1 league, but I'm going to go with JSN coming off that huge game.
When we come back, we're going to go through Katie's favorite player props. We're going to see whether or not I like them, whether or not Adam likes them. We don't even know what they are yet. You're going to have to find out what they are when we come back after the break.
They're hiding under the mustard. Welcome back to FFT. It is time now for the BetMGM Prop Challenge presented by, well, you guessed it, BetMGM, the sportsbook that was born in Vegas. And take a look, people. Here are the results after last week. Mox is 7-3, Dave 6-4, Jamie 5-5, rounding out the top. But
you're on a lot of player prop shows, Katie. How often are all 3 of the pundits at least 500?
Not well. We're only 2 weeks in. Let's give ourselves some time.
No,
but
I want to talk myself up. I want to.
Not often. Not often.
Okay.
This is some good stuff. So, Adam, you haven't played this game with us yet, so let me just walk you through it. I'm going to give you a player, and I'm going to say, whether it's rush yards, receiving yards, whatever. You have to guess how many, or actually you just you project how many you think this player is going to have, and then we'll talk about the line and we'll talk about my bet. So first one, Gus Edwards and his rushing yards. How many rushing yards will Gus Edwards have this week against the Steelers?
He's been brutal. Like I don't know if you've watched his film. But, I mean, it's a night and day difference between him and J.K. Dobbins. So here's my number. I'm going, I hope this is under.
26. All right, so you guys are both with me. The line is 31.5. I'm on the under in this one. Steelers have been stingy against the run. And really, you got to go Dobbins here if you are going to pick a running back in this game, especially because historically, Dobbins has done well against Pittsburgh. He has 326 rushing yards, 47 carries in 3 games versus Pitt. So Gus Edwards, we're fading you.
I mean, the Chargers might be fading him soon because he's been playing so poorly this season. Kamani Vidal is actually a decent stash in deeper leagues if you're looking for a running back to take up a spot on your bench. Could end up mattering at some point this year. We know that Gus is old. He doesn't look like himself. And J.K. Dobbins does have an injury history.
Yeah, the bus has some wheels falling off of that one. All right, let's look at Lamar Jackson and his rushing yards. How many do you think Jackson racks up this week?
You got me on his passing yards last week.
Mm-hmm. I got some tricks up my sleeve.
I bet you do.
A little bit later. We're starting easy.
This is easy?
Well,
against Dallas?
We're starting with players that
okay, my handwriting is so bad, and I messed up the happy face up there too, but I'll go 53.
Okay.
Look at mine.
54. You guys are both on the money. The line is 53.5.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Hold on. So just to make clear,
yes.
It's not like we looked before the show.
No.
Katie didn't stooge off to one of us what the line was. This is unbelievable.
Two sharp guys.
Wait, now I have to hope for under?
Two sharp.
Right, you're on the under, and I'm on the over now.
And I'm with you. I'm on the over on this one. The Cowboys have struggled to stop the run, but they've got a really good pass rush. And when we saw what Lamar Jackson was able to do in the first game against a really good Chiefs pass rush, I think he's going to be rushing a lot in this game. I am taking the over, but really sharp stuff out of you guys.
Hold on. Adam, can you at least rank the pass catchers for Baltimore in this game? It's Zay Flowers, it's Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely. What do you think of them?
Oh, for real? I thought this was like a joke.
No. Yeah.
I don't really like Isaiah Likely. I'd only start him if it meant I'd have to drop him to pick up another strike. I wouldn't do that. So I would just start Likely in that scenario, but I'd rather not start him. Andrews is a must start for one more week. Zay Flowers is the focal point of their offense right now. I do think he's going to have a pretty big game because I'm hoping for a lot of points. I think the total's it's like 49 or something if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
And this wouldn't shock me if it were a 60-point total, right? If this were one of the higher scoring games. But I think Zay Flowers is going to have a really big game. He's basically a must start for me.
All right, next one, Katie.
Kyle Juszczyk, receiving yards.
Kyle Juszczyk, receiving yards. We actually talked about him on the show.
I'm telling you, I got some tricks up my sleeve.
Kittle out.
No Kittle, no Debo. Obviously,
of course,
no Christian
the 49ers
McCaffrey.
girl is going to.
Come on.
All right, here's mine.
13
See that?
says Dave.
Unlucky 13. Adam, what have you got?
Oh, wow, I'm way off.
26. I actually, you know what? I'm on the over. The line is 11.5, but I am on the over, which you both are. But I think he's going to be closer to what Adam has put in. There's really not a lot of pass catchers available for San Francisco right now. Juice has gone over this in the first 2 games. I think he gets some, so I like this.
He went over this in the first 2 games when Kittle played.
When
Debo played.
Yes, exactly.
So it would make sense that he would do it again in this matchup without those guys on the field. Brandon Ayuk better go off in this game.
He has to.
Brock Purdy, I think he's more of a high-end number 2 quarterback. Jawan Jennings is going to be out there in a bunch of leagues. If you're in a pinch at wide receiver, you love this because it's a 49er. Jawan Jennings isn't going to be bad. He might get you 10 to 11 PPR points.
Okay, we got to go quickly. Okay, Tank Dell, rushing yards.
Tank Dell, rushing
yards.
yards.
Yeah, you heard me, Dave. Rushing yards.
You do have tricks up your sleeve. It's going to be a single digit. There we go.
The highest single digit there is, Dave.
9,
I've got 7. What's the prop?
The line is 3.5. I like the over in this, so I'm with you on this one. Multiple carries per game the first 2 weeks. No Joe Mixon. I feel like they're going to start using Tank Dell as more like a Debo. All right, next one. Sam Darnold on his passing yards.
against Houston. I think that's going to be a tough one for him.
No, I'll change that. Sam Darnold passing yards.
195.
I'm going to go higher than that. I've got 240.
Okay,
with
Dave.
an Aizer with the mustache in there.
Dave is on the money on this one, 231 and a half. So you're a little bit closer. And yeah, I'm taking the over on that 231. Look, the Texans made Caleb Williams look really, really bad, but Sam Darnold is arguably better than Caleb Williams is. Completed 72% of his passes. And he threw a lot against San Francisco. Now, of course, Justin Jefferson helped him with that 97-yard, but I still think he will be fine with this one. So that is going to complete the Bet MGM Prop Challenge. We'll have to see how we got to get a little thing for Adam on the side too.
Yeah,
he filled in.
We'll see how he does, or maybe we'll just give his results to Jamie.
Ask FFT is coming up next. You're watching Fantasy Football Today on CBS Sports Network. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. Before we get out of here, we're going to answer some of your burning questions. Wow, this one's specifically to you, Dave. I need to win this week after an 0-2 start. Need some QB advice for this week. Sam Darnold or Kirk Cousins?
I don't love the matchup for either one of them, but I am going to take Sam Darnold. I think he has more upside.
All right.
Yeah, Darnold, if the person cares about my opinion, Darnold.
It was specifically for Dave, but I'll come to you first for this one, Adam. Being offered J.K. Dobbins for Derek Carr and T. Higgins. No way. We don't even have to read the rest. No way. Why?
I think
I'd rather have Higgins than Dobbins straight up, I think. So, no, not doing this.
Yeah, I think it's a little too much to pay right now. And I know that Carr is your backup quarterback. You should be able to do a little bit better than Dobbins for Carr and T. Higgins.
All right, Kyle, you heard him. No way. Next question. How about Stevenson or Montgomery in 12 standard leagues?
The problem is Stevenson already played, so hopefully if you can go back in time, you can start Montgomery. I'm not going to say what I would have told you.
Okay, all right, that's one for Steven. Next question. Dave, why are people directing this to you, Dave?
I don't know, but I'm happy to answer them. Is it time to trade Tyreek Hill and Kyren Williams? It feels like it is. The problem is if you trade them now, you're not going to get what you think is fair value for them. So I would just keep using Tyreek Hill and Kyren Williams. Tyreek Hill, a top 15 receiver this week. Kyren Williams closer to a number 20 running back for me. So a low-end number 2 RB.
Adam, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the guy's name is Adam. I think he should ask me.
Right? I agree.
Yeah, I wouldn't sell low. It's not like the season's over for Tua and Kupp and Nakua and all that. So I think I'd ride it out if I could, especially if I were 2-0.
All right, next question. Have Parkinson as my tight end. Can drop him for Jonnu, Gesicki, Juwan, Jay, or Ertz, PPR. What do you think?
I would go with Jonnu Smith. I don't think that last week was a one-week fluke for him in Miami's offense. And I think Skylar Thompson's going to need short area targets. If this is PPR, and it is, Jack said so, I'd start him over Parkinson.
Adam?
I would start Colby Parkinson, but totally fine with John Smith. They're both, could have one catch or could have 5.
All right. I think we got one more question.
One more.
What's your outlook on Caleb Williams? Ooh,
rest of season. ROS. Someone dropped him, huh? I don't mind stashing him. Adam, what do you say?
I loved him. He was a centerpiece to my strategy at QB. I have dropped him in some leagues. I've also picked him up in some leagues. I would say if you have a roster spot that you don't really care about, you should keep him on your bench. Turn around. I have no confidence in starting him right now. I have lost some faith in him for this season, I got to be honest, but better times could be ahead.
Well, the schedule's great. He's got the Colts this week, and then it's the Rams, the Panthers, the Jaguars, and then a bye, and then Washington is after that, and then Arizona after that, and then New England after that. There is a great schedule ahead. I think all Bears players are worth taking a look at, trying to buy low, or certainly pick up off the waiver wire like Dez did.
I dropped him as well, but I think in the league that we're all in together, somehow I got all the quarterbacks. So I had Jaylen Jalen Daniels, Caleb Williams, and Patrick Mahomes. So I ended up dropping Caleb after last week. Do you think that was the right thing to do? Or
yeah, because you had so many other quarterbacks who were good. It makes sense.
I got all the quarterbacks.
Plus,
all
now
right.
I can get Caleb.
Yeah, now you can. That's in our league. All right, thanks for joining us today on Fantasy Football Today. Obviously, lock in with us all the time, but we are live every single Friday right here on CBS Sports Network. You can scan the QR code on the code right there on the screen, or listen wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for joining.